Hey everyone, Rob Janicki here, author of Slacker, 1991, Teen Spirit Angst and the Generation It Created, coming out later this year via Inspired by You books. Today's video is going to be a little different than the ones I've posted before. It is not directly about music or my book, although indirectly it is, because I wanted to talk about writer's block and everything that surrounds it. Is it real? If it is real, what is it? How do you define it? How do you get through it? Inherently, it sounds negative, but could it be positive? All of these things are thoughts that every writer, I believe, has faced. I've talked to many, and they all agree that there's some mechanism in their brain, their subconscious, wherever, that can derail a creative experience. And it's not just writing in terms of books or essays or poetry. It's writing music as well. I know many musicians and many songwriters who fall into the writer's block category at times. I've been around them when they're writing or trying to write. I've been in the studio with musicians making records who just could not get through a song. Whether it's lyrically or musically, they just weren't happy with what was coming out, or maybe nothing was coming out. So, I don't know, maybe it's creator's block, might be a better title for it, because when you say writer's block, most people do think of the written word. I guess now it's typing, but I still write with a pen often. So I'd love to know what other people think, other writers, and how they get through those moments when it's just not happening for them. I go through it. I recently have been through one of these writer's blocks myself over the last 3-4 weeks. Part of it has to do with an injury. I have a herniated disc in my back, and kind of knocked me out for a while. I wasn't really able to do anything because of the pain. Couldn't even sit up, really, for days at a time. Anyway, I think when you experience writer's block, it's a combination of things. At least for me, it's a combination of things. I tend to write when I'm inspired to write. I know a lot of writers go by write every single day, write anything, just keep writing. I know Maya Angelou had that concept or that philosophy about writing. Just write. Something will eventually happen. And to a degree, that's true. Some people, I think Charles Bukowski said, if you don't love what you're doing, if it's not pouring out of you, don't do it. So you've got opposite ends of the spectrum. I kind of fall in the middle, I guess. There's a thing that I go through where if I'm not inspired, I just don't want to do it. I can, and I have, but it's certainly not my best work. I like to do things when I'm inspired, and I'm inspired by many different things. And it's not hard to inspire me to get going. But sometimes you get blocked. And in my case recently, what I started all this about just a few minutes ago about my back, I think writer's block or creator's block or any kind of stoppage in what you are doing creatively, what you have intended to do, could be depression. It could be a physical illness or ailment. There's so many things that go on in daily life that can take you away from the imagination or the ability to sit down and get into the headspace to write about whatever it is you're writing about. And they say writing is it's kind of like a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it. And again, to a degree, I think all of these things are true. it's certainly not black and white. There's no real answer, I don't believe, for curing it or getting through it. I don't think there's one reason. Everybody's different. When it happens to me and when I get stuck, I get anxious. When I get anxious, I get even more in my head, and I have more ideas, which could be a good thing, but it also gets cluttered, and the focus on one subject is hard to come by. And then, as with all creative endeavors, I think, you start to second guess yourself. You start to wonder if what you're doing is any good. There's all this self-doubt. You go down that rabbit hole and you wonder, why the hell would anybody want to read or hear what I'm saying or have to say? And it's at times like that where you have to pull away. At least I do. And I keep saying you, but there's certainly, I'm not alone. There's certainly many people who probably handle it this way. And like I said earlier, I'd love to hear from people who handle it differently. I tend to pull back at that point. I don't want to worry about the audience too much. I don't want to worry about what other people will think. There's enough time for that. And believe me, writing Slacker over these last 4 years, it's happened numerous times where you worry about what people will think. Ultimately, of course, you want people to like what you do, and you want them to, at the very least, get something from it. Whether it's entertainment or education or a different perspective on something. So you have to worry about your audience, of course, but I think any artistic or creative mindset has to come from within first. You have to do it to satisfy that need in you. If you don't, it's going to be hard for people to pull that thing that you're trying to get out there from you and take it for themselves and do something positive with it. People want a genuine, true, everything you've got kind of product from a writer or a creator, a musician. And I think whether you realize that or not, that's what's going on. If you hear a piece of music, or if you read a poem, or if you read a story, if you read a book, an essay, an article, whatever, I think you want it to be genuine from the writer's point of view, and you want them to be so passionate about what they're doing that it can't help but spill into you. Words have that power. You can, I know I've read something on a page and I'm like, wow, I need to read that again. Or I've read entire books more than once. Certainly I've listened to songs thousands of times in my life, certain songs over and over and over again. It's a little bit easier to do that with a 3.5 minute, 4 minute song than it is an entire book. But you go back to the things that feel genuine and are genuine. And I think the only way for that to happen is for the writer to be in a place where what they're doing means everything to them in that moment. And you just put it out there. Now, when you get stuck, back to the whole writer's block theme, there's many ways you can handle it. I usually stop. I don't try and force it because it doesn't work for me. And the first thing I do is just get my mind off of whatever it is I'm writing. Get as far away from it in my mind as I can. Then I will typically listen to music. I like to drive. I like to go for a drive with music on, of course. But just something, just to get away. It's maybe that idea of physically leaving the place where you were when you were writing, getting away from it. I'll do laundry, go shopping, things I do anyway, but I'll purposely go and do that then to change my focus. And all the while, the thoughts about why I'm stuck or what I'm stuck on will come back. They're there. But I'm not super focused on it like I was when I was writing it. And after a while, it always comes back to the point where I say to myself, you were doing it. It was happening. You had the inspiration, you had the drive, you had the desire, you had the knowledge, you had the research, you had all of it, and you were doing it. There's no reason to stop. Or there's no reason to take this blockage, if you will, and let it stop you. Go back, do all of those things over again, even if you rewrite some of what you've already written. I've done that too. Even if I liked what I've done prior, I'll just kind of rewrite it, maybe do a quick draft of what I've done, just to kind of get back into the mode of writing that particular piece. And as I'm doing that, I think coming from whether it was driving or shopping or laundry or whatever, and certainly listening to music, I have this clarity, I guess, of somebody else's art, you know, pertaining to the music I was listening to, helping me out a little bit, knowing that they probably went through some writer's block creating that piece of music, but got through it to the point where it was released and it's doing something great in the world, certainly in that moment for me. And that I can draw inspiration from and then continue writing. And that's the thing. Like, you have to continue. You know, Stephen King said something to the effect of, you know, the scariest thing to do is start. And again, you know, all the other authors I mentioned, you know, I can take bits and pieces from all of their examples of writer's block and agree with. Starting is the hardest thing to do. Inevitably, you'll run into a block or something in life will pop up and whatever. But once you've started it and you've committed to it and you know you have to get that thing out there, there are ways to do it, and you owe it to yourself, and eventually you owe it to the audience that will consume this and finish it. So I guess to wrap it up, writer's block happens, call it what you will. In the moment, it's negative because it's stopping you from doing the thing you love, but you don't stay in that space. You redirect, you sort of get re-inspired, I guess, maybe from other means like I do, and you realize that you started this for a reason, and it was something that you had to say and it had to get out. So that didn't change just because you got writer's block, just because you got stuck, just because the words stopped coming for whatever reason in that moment. It doesn't mean the thing you had to say is no longer important. It's probably more important than when you first started, because you're fighting through it to finish it. You know, nothing comes easy. And if it does, maybe you should be a little wary of that. I don't know. I think it is an interesting topic to talk about for writers, musicians, creators of all kinds, and everybody's way through could potentially help somebody else who has to go through it. So hopefully that's what this video will do for someone else. Like I said, I'd love to know your methods of getting through it in the comments. And I think that's all I have to say. I'm blocked. There's nothing left to say for now. But thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks.